We're live now, Chair.
Thank you very much. Welcome, members, again to this public session of the Powys Pension Investments Committee. Item 6, apologies. I think it's just been mentioned. Karen says no apologies, so we'll move on. Thank you. Item 7, declaration of interest. To receive any declaration of interest from members relating to items on the agenda, please declare now or for all item on the agenda. I'd like to declare I'm a member of the Powys Pension Fund.
Likewise, Chair.
Arwell, Hugh,
Likewise, Chair.
Adam. I can't see Karina. I've lost. Is Karina in?
Likewise.
Thank you very much. David, yeah, David, right. Item 8, Chair's remarks. Some of you might have seen last week. Last week today, I attended the LGC awards for the WPP. We won an award for investment award, which is very good for WPP. A very enjoyable afternoon. So another award, another one on the cabinet, in the cabinet. So it's all very positive. I think yes, we've had I think I informed us our Edinburgh trip. Some of the members came. Karina, myself, Chris, Arwell, and David went to Edinburgh, Bailey Gifford, which was a very good conference. Thank you. So I'll move on swiftly. I got JGC on Monday. So thank you all those attended with Rob Lamb on Wednesday. I think it was a very positive meeting, and thank you all also all the questions. Really good. I think it was a really good meeting. Thank you. Item 9, funding strategy statement. To receive report from pension fund manager.
Thank you, Chair. Just in the interest of time, there's not much changed in this report since the last presented to committee. So just for context, this was presented in draft form to committee at the September meeting. Following that, the document went out for consultation with the fund employers during October, and any comments that I've received from employers and other parties since then have been incorporated into this amendment. There are only some very minor changes to the document the committee saw in September, and those are on the bottom of page 127, when it talks about the recovery period being set at 12 years, the 2025 valuation. And then moving up to the top of page 128 of the pack, when it's talking, sorry, about halfway down the page, 128 is talking about setting the surplus buffer at 110% when it's previously 105%. Those are the only two changes since the committee last spoke on the item. So that was all I was going to say on it. You have seen it previously, but I am happy to take any questions. We've got Becky here as a fund actuary as well, if there are any questions relating to this document. But this works alongside the investment strategy. It's a very important part of the whole valuation process, and it'll be published at the appropriate time if committee approve it today.
Okay, any questions? Thank you, Chris. No, so we're happy to approve of updated funding strategy. I want to start thinking about strategy statement.
Put your teeth in, Chair.
I know.
More than happy to
Thank you, Chris. Proposer.
propose.
Hugh, you're muted, Hugh.
Just a note to thank the officers for joining together, I'll second the proposal.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I have a show of hands, please? Everybody happy? David, Hugh, Adam, yeah. It's lost screen again. That's it, yeah. And Karina, are you okay then? Carry on.
Happy. Sorry about that, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Item 10, responsible investment for committee to receive report from the pension fund manager.
Thank you, Chair. Is it easier for everyone if I share my screen, or has everybody got the report pack in front of them? I'm happy to do
I think it's are you happy? I think it's easy when you share the screen. We know where you are when you're reporting.
No
That be
problem.
okay with everybody?
Everybody happy with that? I've offered to do that, but I'm not familiar with Zoom, so give me a second to find the share icon. Oh, there it is, and I'll make sure I do that now. Okay, so hopefully that should be
something's happening. Yes,
that's now come through.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, committee. This paper has been prepared essentially off the back of a motion that the council passed back in October. But I've also used it as an opportunity to just update committee on the work that's been going on around this subject matter. It's been happening for some time with the officers around Wales and WPP, and also the membership of the JGC, the Joint Governance Committee around Wales as well. And that's the work around divestments and exclusions and whatnot. So I thought this was an opportune moment to prepare this report and present it to committee today. So just quickly scrolling through the content. The introduction is what it is. This is text essentially lifted from the Responsible Investment Policy, just setting out committee's beliefs on their approach to responsible investment, and about how it has a fiduciary responsibility to seek the necessary returns, but also has an interest in integrating responsible investment across the investment portfolio. So that's linked. That's taken from the Responsible Investment Policy. Section 2 looks at the actual detail of what the council passed in its motion in October, and those are set out in those 4 points there. I mean, I can read them out, but hopefully you should be well aware of those already.
Yeah.
I also took the opportunity then to just remind committee of some guidance that was published on these matters by the Scheme Advisory Board around fiduciary duty. This term comes up a lot, so I thought it was useful to provide some context to that by providing the bulletin as an appendix to this report as well. But essentially, I've just pulled out 4 bullet points summarised as you can see in front of you. That's about exercising LGPS responsibilities with the primary purpose must be to achieve the required returns in an appropriate risk managed way to pay pensions when they become due, minimise the need for additional funding in the future. This is talking about managing contribution rates, etc. as well. So any decisions that are taken at the fund level, as we've talked about the valuation this morning, it could potentially have an impact on the employer contribution rates as well. So that's trying to be reflected in that point there. The administrative authorities may consider non-financial factors, but may only do so where it would not lead to significant financial detriment and where it would have the support of the scheme beneficiaries. It's not appropriate for political preferences, whether local or national, to take precedence over what's required under the fiduciary duty. And the Scheme Advisory Board's view is that the Pension Committee operates as a quasi-trust-like role. I say that text has been taken from the bulletin, which has got more detail attached in the appendix, but rather than pasting it all into here, because the document's long enough, I thought I'd try and summarise it for you. In terms of what the fund is required to provide or produce, 2.3 just points out the fund has to produce an investment strategy statement. We've talked about that this morning and at previous meetings, but also in addition to that, you'll be aware the fund does produce the Responsible Investment Policy. Both are published on the fund's website. And in fact, the Responsible Investment Policy was reviewed in September 2025, as you'll no doubt remember. So then I decided to move on and just frame the context of the motion, and just to make committee aware that there's been a lot of activity around engagement and exclusions and divestment over recent months. As you'll no doubt be aware, you will have been contacted directly by various parties and bodies. But this is not unique to the Powys Fund. Obviously, we work closely at the WPP with the other funds in Wales, and they've experienced similar sorts of engagement as well, particularly on the global conflict zones, as it points out in 3.1. So in response to that, working at the WPP level, the WPP put out some statements in regards of this topic. Again, they're very lengthy. I'm not going to read them out to you, but 3.3, 3.4, and 3.5 just document the statements that WPP have issued on this issue and this matter over the recent months. 3.6, just wanted to make committee aware and just remind committee that there's been a lot of discussion on exclusions and responsible investment and the approach to engagement and whatnot at officer and member level, and that's both locally at the Powys Fund, the WPP, but also around Wales or each individual fund as well. And we do meet regularly to discuss this. But it's not really a new thing. It's something that we have been talking about for some years. And an example of that is that the Sustainable Active Equity Fund was launched in 2023, and that already has some exclusions built into the makeup of the fund. So exclusions has been around within the investment universe in Wales for a few years now. It's just being developed and being worked on and considered further at the minute. In addition to that, there is a new passive equity fund being launched at the WPP, in which the fund now invests in as well, which has a similar exclusionary approach to the Sustainable Fund. And the Powys Fund invests into both of these funds that has these exclusions already in place. So it's just to try and point out that in terms of exclusions and the approach to these sorts of things, the fund is already doing work on this and has been doing work on this for a few years. and the evidence is in those two sub-funds that we actually invest into. In addition to that, there is additional work going on around Wales and at WPP and at the Joint Governance Committee as well, and looking about how exclusions can be considered across the whole investment portfolio, the whole investment universe of the WPP. It's a very, very complicated area, and a lot of work is ongoing. A lot of discussions are taking place about how to make it practical, how to make sure it does what it needs to do, whilst keeping in mind the regulatory requirements we have to operate within, the legal requirements and whatnot. But it was an opportunity for me to basically say, this has had a lot of eyes looking at it over recent months and years, and it will continue to do so. And the WPP are actually carrying out a review of their investment framework at the minute, and they expect to conclude that in early 2026. And that will include some work and focus on exclusions. As and when it's available, obviously I'll present that to committee, so committee are aware of the progress on that. But that's ongoing, and they do expect to conclude their work on it in early 2026, as I note in point 3.7. Some additional considerations for the committee, and I just briefly touched on it, is that the frameworks we have to operate within, we have to operate within regulation, we have to operate within legal frameworks and whatnot. So 4.1 is just pulling out some considerations that committee will need to keep in mind when they're thinking about discussing this topic and making decisions around how or what they might want to do when it comes to any exclusions or divestments. We talked about fiduciary duty. That is what it is, and we have got guidance around how to operate that. There's a regulatory compliance, which I've talked about, and the processes we must follow and go through to make sure that's complied with. There's things like contractual arrangements which might need to be amended and whatnot. If any decisions are taken where a request is made to exclude a specific company potentially, this may be changes to legal documentation that we'll have to go through in order to enforce that. So we need to make sure we're aware of that. And if the fund is contemplating changes to its asset allocation, it must ensure it keeps that fiduciary duty in mind, as I know you do when we work through these matters anyway. So with all that being said, I realise I've gone through that quite quickly before I open up to the committee for discussion and comment and whatnot. There's a couple of recommendations at the end, and that's essentially to note that the work that's gone on. So the committee considers the council motion and notes the work undertaken to date and will need to be undertaken to respond to the motion, and that the committee requests the officers to consider the motion alongside the ongoing work at the WPP and then bring proposals back to the committee in the new year. So that's the summary of the high-level paper. Obviously, committee will now want to probably discuss the content of the motion and whatnot, but I'll hand it over to committee now. That's the context behind the report, and I'll hand it back to committee now for comments and any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for that. Councillor Carina.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Chair. No, I'm pleased to see this considered response. I understand that WPP are looking at maybe changes to their investment before we get fully pooled next year by March. And I think, isn't it, the Scheme Advisory Board may look again at their Nigel Griffin's advice. Is that an implication?
I'm not sure whether the Scheme Advisory Board will look again at the legal advice, but legal advice is like any form of advice. There might be different approaches and different interpretations of the law. In terms of what we operate, we take the LGA and the Scheme Advisory Board's interpretation of the law as how we operate on a day-to-day basis and run the fund. So I'm not sure that the Scheme Advisory Board are revisiting it. It's probably a better question for them. All I can go on is what they've actually published at this point, Karina, which is what I presented to you as an appendix to this report.
Thank you.
Okay. David?
Yeah, just to confirm what Chris said there, that we're going on Nigel Griffin's advice at the moment, which is through the Scheme Advisory Board for the LGPS. The Pensions Minister, Torsten Bell, announced this week that they're going to bring in some legislation, some new legislation for fiduciary duty for the private pension sector. I'm sure that the LGPS will have to take cognizance of what's on that, and I suspect that if they are legislating for the private sector, they will do so for the public sector as well, in which is basically the LGPS as the funded scheme, in almost the same timescale, I would suggest. So we will have to be cognizant of changes going forward, and it would be perhaps risky to jump sideways now before we're aware of those potential changes. I think it's also a very risky area. I've a personal experience of being taken to a judicial review by the Jewish Human Rights Organization when another council decided to make a decision in this, and it's very difficult to discuss this at full council level where the other members haven't been trained to the same extent as the members of this committee. And I would commend the officers and the chair for the way that this is being dealt with, and being not out of control. It's a very difficult scenario, and you don't want to be in a judicial review and named in papers like the Daily Telegraph, as I was a few years, well, 15, 20 years ago. It's not where you want to be, just outside the herd. I think Chris and Jane are very wise in saying if we're in where WPP are, then that's where we should be, rather than out on our own on this.
Yeah, this will be this is on the agenda for Monday. Adam. Thank you, David. Sorry, Adam.
Thank you, Chair. And and I'm just going to also reflect it. Actually, it's a really still good, position paper, Chris, and presenting where we're at from WP and ourselves. And actually, the conclusion in there, or the recommendation in there, to look again and bring something back in the new year does seem very timely. Particularly, I wasn't aware of the Torsten Bell latest news, David, so that's good to know. And I hadn't really quite fully clocked that WPP's review would also be sort of returning to the table at that point. So that does seem very timely. Can I just ask one quick technical question or clarification? In the appendix, the SAB, the Scheme Advisory Board, that's dated at the bottom of it, September 2024. Is that correct, Chris? It's not the September 2025.
No, I think that is correct. Yeah, that's when they produced that guidance on lobbying and fiduciary duty. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Because there is. So I suppose my request, or my contribution here, is in that final point you're talking about, which is we request you to go away and consider the motion alongside the ongoing work at WPP, because I think the motion requires a response by the end of March. I think is that report back into full council. Is where you're talking about alongside the ongoing work at WPP. I suppose I might ask if that can be broadened, because we have had, there are several things knocking around. WPP, Torsten Bell's declaration. There is the original, relatively well-reasoned letter that came to you, Chair, from John Brooks of the Montgomeryshire Palestinian Solidarity Campaign, where we've given an undertaking that would be seen and heard by committee. And whilst we have all seen it, it hasn't been presented as part of a paper. So it is one perspective. I would probably also welcome, and I understand the summary of Nigel Griffin's legal, but when you read the full legal paper from Nigel Griffin, there are nuances in various later stages. So whilst I understand your interpretation of it and the summary, Chris, I'd like it or appreciate it when we do consider this, we can see that attached in full so that we can reference it. And I would like us to understand whether the legal advice tabled from the Doughty Street chambers, and that's the one that, as I understand it, did trigger a response from SAB in early September. So there is a SAB updated. It's not guidance. It notes the new guidance. It notes the new legal opinion and says it will go away and think about it. And I'm not sure we've seen anything from SAB since then, but I assume they are considering a response to that Doughty Street legal opinion. And if that's the case, I'd welcome that to be part and parcel of your considerations. So,
Yeah, sorry. I think my understanding in relation to that particular document is that they've actually referred on to the minister, the LGPS, to consider a response, because I think some of the content within that is actually talking about international law, not necessarily pension legislation and whatnot. So it's wider than just the pensions arena. But yeah, I can certainly collate some documentation for committee.
Just so that it's almost your your judicial review point, David, isn't it? It is, judicial reviews are all about have we followed due process, and I suppose my request here is as you go and do this thinking, you're aware of all these things. If you can make those things clear to us in the paper that you come back with, and almost give us chapter and verse in the appendices, because in that way we know that we have followed due process, given it good consideration, and any thoughts around judicial review then are minimised. My second point, if I may, is that we do, in a lot of what we talk about, we talk a lot about our reliance on, is it Rebecca, and on engagement. And I'm just aware that some, coming from Councillor Sean Cox, have been some very sort of straightforward questions about evidence of impact that have been going to the Wales Pension Partnership. Can we see the claims that are made in their annual report are in the annual report unsubstantiated by evidence? Examples are given. So I suppose I would request that if we're going to use the idea of engagement as part and parcel of how we reason, our responsible investment strategy, could I encourage Wales Pension Partnership to answer Councillor Sean Cox in full, and for that to be visible to us as a committee as well?
Yeah, you're right. Just to pick up on the point about Robeco, obviously the engagement provider for the LGPS, for the WPP, sorry. I believe they do present public papers at the Joint Governance Committee. So there are some public documents available out there. I don't think they'll go into specific detail about specific companies, named companies, where they, because of ongoing engagement, there's a risk of them potentially disrupting the engagement if they're named publicly and whatnot. So I have struggled with how we disseminate the engagement side of this, because it's such a massive piece. And in fact, I discussed it yesterday with Aon. It's something that I've been trying to work towards, how we feed back this information, particularly in respect to point 4. It's on screen in front of you, this information back to the council. So I think it's another one you'll have to leave with me about how we best tackle the dissemination of the information about engagement and how it works and whatnot. So, but it involves a third party, and we have to be considerate about what they're able to report publicly as well.
Yeah, I suppose I agree, and I appreciate, and if it's a clarification that we can't declare that information, the rationale for why we can't give the evidence behind Rebecca's claims of impact, and why that might be too sensitive to put into the public domain. But at the moment, it's not very clear to see the impact of engagement. We get the overarching statements that says it's working, but not the second tier of evidence behind it that gives assurance behind that. But if that could be addressed as part of coming back in the new year and giving that full response to full council, that would be appreciated.
I can certainly raise it and have the discussion with Robeco. Yeah.
I think Chris, some comments like that might come up on Monday, when they Chris, something in the.
Yes, there's a similar sort of item going to the Joint Governance Committee on Monday, actually, so it'll be discussed on an all Wales basis as well. Okay, thank you, Adam.
Thanks, Adam. Okay, does that conclude your report, Chris? Or
yeah, that was it, Chair. I was interested to hear what the committee said. Thank you. Yeah.
The recommendations are here. That the committee considers the council motion and notes the work undertaken to date and to be undertaken in response to the motion. And 2, committee requests officers to consider the motion alongside the ongoing work at the WPP and bring proposals back to the committee in the new year. Remember, are you happy with this? With the recommendation? Thank you. Our proposer, seconder, Adam. Show of hands, please.
Yep.
Karina, David. Who have I lost now? Hugh. Hugh must be on the other side somewhere.
That's Hugh.
Oh, is Hugh still? How's he gone?
Oh, Hugh's there.
Okay, Hugh, I can see him now. Sorry, I haven't got big enough screen. Okay, then, Karina. No, carry on.
Yep.
I'm doing this again. I'm doing this again now. Okay.
No problem, Chair. That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay then. Item 11, administration and governance update. Chris again. Are you muted,
Muted, Chris.
That's how people prefer to hear me, Chair. So, so yes, noting the time, I won't take committee through every bullet point on this. I just wanted to pull out a couple of things. 2.2 is just mentioning the LGPS governance conference. Myself and the chair attending that on behalf of the fund, and I think maybe the chair of the pension board may also be attending as well. So we have a good representation at the governance conference in Cardiff. Just, I thought 2.3 might be interesting for committee. This is an update of the LGPS as a whole for 24-25. Some bullet points there in terms of the scale and the size, and some changes between 2023 and 2024. Hopefully you've had the chance to look at them. If you've got any questions about them, happy to take them. I'm not going to go through them if that's okay with committee, just in the interest of time, but they are there, taken from the annual reports. The key one I did want to touch on is about the pension schemes bill and the various consultations that are ongoing. The committee will be aware that the LGPS is going through a period of transition as we talk about the WPP-IMCO. There's 2 new sets of legislation that have been published in draft as well by government, and they actually came off the back of the pension schemes bill, which we talked about previously, which is covered in 2.4 with various hyperlinks. 2.5 is just information about ministerial appointments, but just keeping on the theme of the legislation, there's some consultations outstanding and open within the LGPS. One is to do with access and protections, and this is looking at the member side of things and the impact of members when it comes to amendments to the regulations or potential amendments to regulations, changes to the minimum pension age, for example. This consultation is closing on the 22nd of December. And my understanding of it is that the administration team are working together with other administration teams within Wales to produce a joint response from Wales on this one. That tends to be how they treat the administration related consultations. So once that's available, I'll share it with committee for your information as well ahead of the 22nd of December. One that I will be more involved in is 2.7. And 2.7 is referring to a consultation that was launched on the 20th of November, so a couple of weeks ago. MHCLG launched a technical consultation essentially on 2 sets of legislation which implement their Fit for the Future consultation proposal that was launched in November 2024. We've talked an awful lot since then about the main requirement being for the WPP to create an investment management company. But actually, that's only the first 2/3 of the consultation. The bottom third of the consultation was related to governance. So what we've now seen filter through from MHCLG is 2 sets of legislation: the investment piece, looking at the IMCO and the impacts on the investment side of things, but also in this 3rd bullet point here, the amendment regulations in respect of the administration and the governance side as well. So I've linked to the regulations. They're obviously really technical. I don't expect you to go and read them and come away and advise on those, but it's there for your information. But there are a lot of changes that are coming in to the governance side. Pleasingly, and I want to give some assurance to committee on this one, is that we're coming from a very good place. These amendments were introduced to try and build a minimum standard within the LGPS when it comes to governance and process. We've spent a lot of time over recent years working on the governance side of things, and committee will be aware that we've recently appointed into a governance role, specific governance role within the LGPS as well, within the fund, which is timely, knowing that these regulations are coming down the road. So we're in a good place. There is a lot of work to do in respect of implementing these regulations. I will update committee accordingly as we go, but I just wanted committee to be aware that there's quite a lot of work going on around the governance side of things as well as the investment side. Yeah. 2.8 is just for information. CPI was announced as 3.8% at the end of September. Previously, that's what they used to implement pensions increase from the following April. Sorry, David, I saw your hand appear.
Yeah, he's been and gone. He's disappeared off.
Did you want to add anything?
Oh, sorry, Chris, you were moving ahead, so I put it back. But just on that governance piece, just to confirm, I'm very happy to work with Chris and Jane and the chair on responding because of the tight deadlines for 2nd of January. It's a bit like deja vu, this, isn't it? Last year we had Fit for the Future consultation, and we were discussing it between Christmas and New Year before trying to get something out. It's going to be similar again. By the time we get all the input from people like WPP and Aon and Hymans, etc., it's going to be Christmas, and we'll be in the festive period trying to put the finishing touches to at least something to support a WPP response, perhaps. And I think we should put our own response in as well on this governance piece. So yeah, just happy to assist with that, Chris. And
Thank you, David.
It may be a difficult time to come back to the whole committee, but I'm sure you'll do that on email or something.
Yes,
as we get it out. Sorry, just before you went into the rest of the stuff, I thought I might just mention that.
No, I
Thanks,
appreciate
David.
that, and thank you for. I should have mentioned that the consultation closes on the 2nd of January,
Yeah.
so the timing is not ideal in terms of getting a response, but we'll do our best and do something. 2.8 is there for information. 3 follows on a little bit to what we talked about previously in the previous item about responsible investment. Statements made by the Scheme Advisory Board in response to papers issued by the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Lots of discussion has happened. Lots of discussion will continue to happen, and hopefully the discussion we had in the previous item has given some committee some assurances about the work that's ongoing at the fund level and the WPP level as well on that. 3.2 is just to make committee aware that the Scheme Advisory Board have published some legal advice on the pooling governance and any conflicts of interest. So it's worth clicking on the hyperlink in that 3rd paragraph down there, just have a quick read of that. We have a conflicts of interest policy in place at the fund. It was reviewed by the Pensions Board in July, but since then things have moved on. So I think it makes sense for us to revisit that one, Chair of the Pension Board, David, in light of what's in the new draft regulations and what any guidance that might be issued by the Scheme Advisory Board, and the fact that there's a guidance, an advice note been published now as well. So the fund has a conflict of interest process policy. It is appropriate and relevant. It's still fine, but we will need to adjust it in respect of the expectations being placed on funds now from the government when it comes to conflicts of interest.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I think Karina wants to come in.
Yeah, no, thanks. I did have a quick look at that, and it did say that different authorities may have different views about responsible investment, and how could you align everybody's views in the new WPP? Some people may want to go faster, some people slower, that sort of thing. Is that fair?
It is, but and I think the only way the WPP can tackle that is as they've tackled it up to date, is to try and leave the policy open enough for individual funds to be able to have their own policy and with enough scope for the WPP to be able to implement it. So it is a challenge. You're right. There's 8 funds in Wales, and we'll all have different views and different paces and different target dates, in fact. So it requires ongoing work, Karina, but it'll have to be wide enough to not restrict anybody who might want to move at a different pace.
Thank you.
Yeah.
3.3, thank you, Karina. 3.3 is just for information. I don't know if a committee are aware, but Reform UK put out a statement about the LGPS and some thoughts around it. The Scheme Advisory Board released a factual summary in response to that. So that's available for you to be able to read, should you wish to.
Sorry, I'd love to see that report if that's possible.
Yeah, so their response has been published. I'll share a link to, I think there's a press article out there on it, Karina, so I'll share that with you after the meeting. Yeah. Okay. Another one just to bring committee up to date in respect of the pensions dashboards. You'll have heard me talking about that a lot over the past couple of years. We essentially had a deadline of the 31st of October to connect to the pensions dashboard ecosystem, and I'm pleased to say we were able to do that, and we are now connected to the ecosystem, and lots more testing is going on. There's going to be a wider rollout, so we don't yet know the impact on the pension administration team in respect of dashboards. We'll see that as more pension schemes connect to it and we get more inquiries and whatnot. But in terms of our legislative requirement, we hit that, and we're now connected to the dashboard ecosystem. 4.2 is just to give committee assurance that we returned our annual return to the TPR. At the time of writing this, I said it had to be done by the 3rd of December. I think we actually submitted it on the 28th of November. So we've hit our legal requirements when it comes to submitting the scheme return as well. Couple of other items. 4.2 is there for information. 5.1 is just an update on the resourcing. We have now recruited into 3 of the new posts that we committee agreed to some time ago. And so we're now picking up things like governance, systems, communications, training, employer side of things. We're really fleshing out the resource to support the team and the senior management. So that's good. We have somebody joining us on Monday. We then have somebody else joining us on the 5th of January. And we are progressing really well along the recruitment campaign. So thank you for your support on this one. We are now getting there. Risk register, just to update you that all that's changed since the last committee meeting was that the risk gov 0001 has been updated just in the mitigation commentary. And that's just acknowledging what I just mentioned. We now have an employer specific role within the team. Part of what they will do is they will review the process of monitoring contribution returns from employer, look at efficiencies and uses of technology. So risk gov 01 has just had that updated in the mitigation. Other than that, there's been no change since the last meeting. And also breaches register has not been changed or updated since the last meeting. There have been no new breaches. So apologies for skipping through that quickly, Chair, but hopefully that's given committee a flavour of there's lots going on. We've fleshed out the resource to try and deal with some of that, and hopefully we're in a good place when it comes to moving forward.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I just say there's never a quiet period of pensions at the moment. Yeah. So no, it's endless. It's different ways with WP and with all the SAB and all the regulations.
It's changed an awful lot over 10 years, that's for sure. Yeah,
a lot more. Yeah, you might be working over a Christmas dinner doing with your consultation, getting ready for the 2nd of January, Chris. Okay, Karina.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm really glad that you've managed to recruit. That's great.
Yeah, I know it's a big asset to the team, and it's ongoing. It's a relieve a lot of. Yeah,
I will bring them along to committee in various stages to introduce them to committee as well, so committee know who
I think that'll be a good idea, Chris, to see the gang, the team. Sorry. Right, it's happy to somebody propose and second the note to this report, please. Thank you, Hugh. Thank you, Errol. Everybody happy? Okay, lovely. Thank you. Item 12, Wales Pension Partnership WPP update. Chris.
Yes, that's me again, and this will be a very light touch, Chair, so I'll just scroll down to it now. The key thing that I just wanted to reference within this paper, once I can find it. Apologies. The appendices are the usual ones, so those are the quarterly updates, and they're prepared by the WPP for funds in Wales to be able to use. So they are the WPP documents, not mine, but they are included within your pack for information. I'm not going to take you through those. I just wanted to really draw out point 3 and point 3.2, actually, 3.1 and 3.2. Since we last met, the WPP have appointed a chief executive for the investment management company, and that's Mr. Rob Lamb. And as the chair mentioned previously, we have met with Rob a couple of times now, and he's been very, very clear and very understanding in terms of our needs from a fund level as well. And I think the conversations have been very constructive, very helpful, and hopefully giving committee some assurances about what will happen when the IMCO starts taking over on the pooling side of things. So there's a link to the full press release that the WPP produced in 3.1 there. If you haven't had the chance to read it, it's got a bit more detail about Rob and his experiences on the website. 3.2 is just acknowledgement that the WPP won the Investment Innovation Award at the LAPF investments in October. And since then, I think you mentioned earlier on, Chair, that they won a second one, didn't they? The LGC award as well. So they've won 2 awards in the past 2 months or so, both related to the innovation around the investments and the private equity, private markets sort of investments that WPP have been doing. So just wanted to pull those 2 points out for committee, and that was all I was intending to take committee through on this paper, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Any questions? Yeah.
I think
David.
David's, yeah.
Yeah, just to thank Chris, Jane, and the other officers for all the work working with Rob and the other funds in taking this forward in a very timely manner. I think the other, obviously, two pools are going out of existence, and four have very different challenges in terms of taking orphan funds on board from the two pools which are being deleted. The Northern and WPP have the different challenge of setting up an IMCO, and I know from my role in Merseyside that they have very similar plans and structures, but I think WPP are making faster progress. And Northern have already acknowledged that they're working to a end of June timescale rather than end of March. It's commendable that WPP are still making progress towards the end of March, and we've already got Rob in position, and the Northern haven't yet appointed a CEO, so Wales are a couple of months at least ahead of where Northern are, which is the only direct comparator in terms of pools, really. So I think all the work and the fact that we've had a bit of luck that Rob was there working with us to move forward, and I think he's probably the ideal appointment as CEO. And Siarad Cymraeg give it to you. And he's yeah, and you know, everything seems to be going very well. I'm sure there's lots of challenges still to be faced, and lots of work still to be done. But so far, I'm really pleased with the progress.
Thanks, David. Yeah, you can see when we met with Rob on Wednesday, a lot of agreements, a lot of work gets through, agreements and positions to fill, isn't there? As he said, there's ongoing a lot of phone calls this week, interviews. Any more questions? No? Okay, brilliant. Okay, can I propose a second to note this report, please?
Yeah, happy, Chair.
Roll. Thank you.
Yeah,
Second, please. Adam,
happy.
thank you. Everybody happy?
Impressive.
Lovely. Well, thank you. Well, that's 20 past that. That concludes the meeting. There's nothing else to add now, is it, Chris? Thank you all very much for joining us. All right, some of you, we may able to keep you all here to the end. All I gotta do now, wish you, want to see you now, so happy Christmas. And then soon we'll be New Year again. So wish you all the best and have a good break. Or those who are having the break, I think some will be working on consultations over Christmas. Okay, off. So thank you, Ian. Is this Luke and Kenneth left, is it? Thank you very much. And thank you to officers. Okay then, all the best.